Extension State Forage Specialist, here to talk about ergot poisoning in the state.
In my last video, no, not that one, the other one, yeah, I talked about Anasi's Goatman story, an influential early piece of internet horror, and because of that, I've begun to look into other older online horror stories. Which brings me to the focus point of today, the infamous 1999. Now, if you grew up listening to creepypastas in the early 2010s, you'll recognize this title instantly, with good reason. This story is definitely among one of the better early creepypastas. Now, I understand that a few of you new gens might not know what I'm talking about when I say creepypasta. Number one, if you don't, what? Number two, creepypasta refers to an online horror medium that originated in the late 2000s to early 2010s. Although the title originated from short, spammable stories called copypastas, such as My Name is Carmen Winstead or I'm a Navy SEAL, it's often used to describe any form of online horror media in a written format. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, let's do a quick little preamble discussing the history of this story. The story originated on one Camden Lamont's personal blog in 2009. From what I can gather, Camden hasn't released any other works, and there is no other info about him, so you know what, if I do find something, I'll link it in the description. The story picked up traction as word spread, eventually ending in 2011. I'm now going to read the first half of 1999 aloud, and once we're done with that, I'll give my thoughts, continue reading until the end. After that, I'll do a little wrap-up, talk about what I think the story does well, and any problems I have with it. Without further delay, the year is 1999. That sentence brings me back to my senior kindergarten class, when I was 5 years old, where we used to read out the date on the blackboard every single day. The year 1999 exists as a stain in my mind, however, as a memory that will not go away, no matter how hard I try to forget it. 1999 marked the year I lost my first tooth, my first time on a plane, and unfortunately, the early loss of my childhood innocence. That's a loaded fucking statement right there. That one memory that refuses to be wiped. It all started with that new, or old, TV. At that time, Pokemon was the latest fad to hit the school. Pokemon cards, games, stickers, and the most popular, the TV show. So of course, every time I came home from school, I would stay glued to the TV until Pokemon came on at 5. The only problem was that my dad watched the news at 5:30 and Pokemon episodes were back to back, which meant I had to miss an episode every day, something I whined on and on about. My dad got tired of hearing me complain every day. That must be why he went and bought another TV. My dad put the TV he bought in my room. Unfortunately, it was just an old, small boob tube, with rabbit ears even. It also had about 20 channels available, not including the channel Pokemon was on. I recall I didn't care though. I was just thrilled to have my own TV in my room. After surfing through the channels, I came to the conclusion that only Channel 2, TVO Kids, was worth watching, so I watched that for a while. It wasn't for another few months until I discovered Channel 21. One day in April, I was flipping through channels trying to see if Pokemon was on. I pressed Channel 21 into the remote, hoping that there were more channels, and to my delight, there was. My dad was surprised too, but he let me watch it because it seemed to have kids programs on. The channel was called Caledon Local 21. And later, I found out that it was indeed broadcasted from the town of Caledon, Ontario, a town very close to my city. The shows on Caledon Local 21 looked poorly made, and I never understood what was going on half the time. However, as I grew up, every time I thought of that channel, I realized more and more how messed up the shows were, and I had to ask myself, what the fuck was I watching? The following is a list of shows and episodes I remember seeing on Caledon Local 21. How I remember such detail even disturbs me, but I guess things like that stand out in your mind for a while. The channel only ran a few shows, probably because it was only operational between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 12. Very sketchy name if you were looking at it nowadays. The show featured a guy wearing a bear mascot costume who would get a new visitor into his cellar every day. He was always a kid. The show was filmed with a camcorder, and not a very good one either. The police asked me a lot of questions about this show. This episode started with Mr. Bear sitting at a table playing checkers by himself. He sat there playing for a bit, until there was a knock on the door. The camera was then looking up the stairs at the door, where there was another knock. Mr. Bear climbed the stairs, opened the door to reveal 2 young children. One was a boy about my age, and the other was a girl who looked about 8. Mr. Bear danced in delight, and then started talking to the kids. I couldn't hear any of them well. I remember Mr. Bear then led the kids into the cellar, which was quite dark, only lit by a small oil lamp on the table. I can't really remember that much more, except him singing a song which I couldn't hear too well either, probably because of the large bear mask. The episode ended with him playing hide and seek, with the kids hiding in a closet and Mr. Bear counting. May 1999. Soup and Spoon. I don't think this was even a show. I think it was more of a special movie thing. All I know is that I stopped watching Khaled on Local 21 for a while because I thought this show was stupid, especially now since Pokemon came on at 4:30 and 5. I don't remember much of this, but it showed a can of soup and a spoon both attached to strings swinging back and forth as if someone was holding them and dangling them in front of the camera. Interestingly enough, the show was shot in a basement, which looked just like the one used in Mr. Bear's cellar. Like I said, I can't remember much. The only thing I can clearly remember is the end. The entire thing was only half an hour, and just included stuff I found stupid, such as the spoon chasing the soup, trying to eat him. The ending showed a table with about 7 kids sitting around it, each with a bowl of soup in front of them. They were sitting and looking at the camera, but with confused, almost frightened faces. The cameraman then held the can of soup in front of the kids and said, oh boy. Oh, I gotta do Mr. Bear's voice. Okay.
Spoon's ready.
And then stopped. July 1999. It was the summer, and I hadn't watched Channel 21 for a while, until one day, when I slept over at my friend's house and decided to check it out again. My friend had gotten a TV in his room for his 6th birthday, so we stayed up very late, for us 9:30 was very late, and watched TV. That's when I remembered Channel 21 and brought it up to my friend. We decided to see if it was on, and to our surprise it was. They must have changed the broadcasting time. Mr. Bear's Cellar, episode 23. This episode was entertaining for me and my friend, mainly because it had swearing. However, now, when I think of this episode, I realize something definitely was wrong. The episode started with the camera on its side, while it was facing Mr. Bear, who was walking upstairs to the cellar door. The camera then blacked out for a second before fading in, back upright and facing Mr. Bear. There was also another kid talking to him, but this kid looked about 11 or 12. He was talking to Mr. Bear for a while, but I couldn't hear well. Again, the crappy camcorder, until the kid started raising his voice. The kid started saying how it was late, and his sister had to go home. You could also hear more voices in the background. I remember Mr. Bear clearly saying,
"Get the fuck out! You're not invited!"
with a deep voice muffled by the bear mask. I remember my friend and I looking at each other and laughing at the mention of the forbidden F word. But the episode got weirder. The kid began climbing the stairs before turning around and saying how he was going to call the police. Mr. Bear began breaking into a run towards the kid, who started screaming and running as well. And that was the end of the episode. The channel then turned to static shortly after. August 1999. I didn't watch Channel 21 after that. In August, I grew more curious to see Mr. Bear's cellar for some reason, though. The last episode I saw of Mr. Bear was weird and had swearing, which made me also think the show was meant for teenagers. Nonetheless, I flipped to Channel 21 when my dad was busy. Apparently, this episode had been playing for the entire month of August. It was studied a lot by the police. The entire episode was just Mr. Bear sitting in a chair talking to the audience.
Hello, kids. Do you want to visit my cellar? If you do, please write me a letter at this address.
The scene then switched to a white screen with multicolored letters reading the address. And that was what remained for the rest of the episode. This was repeated for 5 hours a day until September came. And guess what? It actually did. I sent Mr. Bear, or that sick bastard who poorly portrayed him, a letter. I did it out of curiosity mostly. My dad was okay with it because he thought it was a legit kids show. But then again, he never saw any of what was on Channel 21. So I wrote a letter using my best writing possible. I think I just said how I wanted to meet Mr. Bear. So my dad sent the letter to the address Mr. Bear had shown. It stayed on all day anyway for some reason. It took about a week to get a response, which I was surprised I did. I still have the letter I received on August 15th, 1999. The letter read,
Dear Elliot, thank you so much for your letter. I would love to have you in my cellar. We play games, watch movies, and go fire camping in the middle of the woods. Come to my house at...
The police cut out this address.
Caledon, Ontario, Canada. I look very forward to having fun with you. Love, Mr. Bear.
I cannot believe my dad never found this sketchy because he actually took me to the house. And then, that's when the police became involved. Those endless questions, those pictures of terrified kids in the woods. That brings me to why I'm writing this blog. That psycho and his friends did some fucked up shit back then, and now it seems he's trying to get in contact with me again. The entire police thing, it's coming back. That has brought 1999 back to me. Over a decade later, it's happening again. Okay, intermission time here. This shit's wild. I think that this story is doing a really good job at building up dread. Episode 23 and 28 are great examples of this. It's very obvious that something's wrong, but our author is too young to understand. Update. November 14th, 2009. People have been emailing me asking what exactly happened in 1999, and I'll get to that, don't worry. Those weird TV shows I was watching, apparently, were meant to attract kids to Mr. Bear's house. What Mr. Bear did shocked the entire town. My dad actually drove me to Caledon, along with the address Mr. Bear left on the letter. The house was actually in the outskirts of town, an open farmland. I still remember that house. It looked like an older farmhouse that looked to have been built in the early 1900s. The windows were all boarded up, and the house looked in a state of disrepair. As we walked up to the house, I remember my dad checking the address over and over again in disbelief. Then the door opened. I expected Mr. Bear to be at the door, but I was surprised to see a police officer emerge from the creaking doorway. The officer began talking to my dad, while I quickly asked if Mr. Bear was at the house. The officer's face cringed slightly, and then he muttered, "Oh God," or something like that. He started talking quietly to my dad, so I couldn't hear, although my dad told me to go in the car anyway. And then we just went home. My dad was quiet the whole drive, and I felt something strange had happened. My dad never told me what happened for a while. I forgot about it anyway, too. Channel 21 no longer came on, and when I asked about it, my dad would not acknowledge it. I think I was 13 when I learned the truth. I remembered Channel 21 one day and asked my dad about it. I guess he finally decided I should hear the truth. Caledon Local 21 was a local TV channel that ran from October 1997 to August 1999 in the Peel region of Ontario. The entire channel was made from a house in Caledon, the one I visited, and run by a man who was not really known by anyone in town. The channel was only available to older TVs because the signal was only picked up by rabbit ears, weaker frequency. The man created all the shows on the channel, which were all kids' shows. He was Mr. Bear, and he was the mysterious cameraman. The real reason he created the channel was more than what was originally thought. As you might have already guessed, he kidnaps kids and held them in his cellar. But while most people thought he was a serial child molester, he really wanted to use the kids for another purpose. The day I arrived, the man had fled his house the night before, the day before the police went in for their investigation. I wasn't the only one who was watching. Update. December 2nd, 2009. Sorry for not answering any questions for so long. I haven't accessed my email account for some time. Anyway, let me set some things straight about what I know. Back in October, I visited the house, previously owned by the man who ran Caledon Local 21. 2 women lived there, operating a daycare business. How ironic. Now, to answer the questions you guys have emailed me. Who else watched Caledon Local 21? I know other people who watched for sure, including those kids who wound up at Mr. Bear's house. After some Google searches, I found a few people on NeoSeeker forums who were discussing the shows from Caledon Local 21. They talked about 2 shows I watched, but also another 2 shows that I had never seen before. A user named I Am Real Life seemed to know all of the shows that were broadcasted on Channel 21. Here are the 2 I've never heard of: The Fallen Angel and Life. I Am Real described it as a fairly boring show about a guy rambling on in front of the camera about how we must please Satan and appease him before it's too late. Paint with the Soul. I Am Real Life and another user called Siggy92 were discussing this show. They described it as Blair Witch-like, as it consisted of the cameraman wandering around the forest at night. Nothing particularly interesting. I'll go looking for the conversation and see if I can send the link. Question: where is Mr. Bear, or the guy who wore the costume? If I did know, I wouldn't have said earlier. I have no idea where this guy is, or if he's dead or alive. Hopefully dead. When I see my dad's friend next time, I'll ask him about this. Maybe I can get a more definitive answer. What did Mr. Bear do to the children? This is by far the most common question I've been asked. I found this out in October as well, via my dad's friend, who is a retired Caledon regional officer. Apparently, the man playing Mr. Bear took the kids out of the house into a forest nearby. And what he did there, the police are not exactly sure how it happened, but 16 charred bodies of children between the ages of 4 and 13 were found in a 15 by 15 foot ditch deep in the forest. My dad's friend did not want to go into exact details, but I'm seeing him next Thursday anyway, so maybe I can extort more info from him then. That's all I've got for now. Thanks for keeping an interest in my blog. I'll try to gather as much info as I can. I've actually been getting pretty interested in this myself. It should be my right to know what the hell happened. Update, January 14th, 2010. Sorry I haven't posted anything for a while. I've kind of lost interest in this blog since I hit a standstill while looking for more information about the identity of the owner of Caledon Local 21. However, a few weeks ago I struck gold. I found some answers, surprisingly, from the father of a kid I used to babysit. He lives just across from my street, and I used to look after his kids when they were younger. He currently doesn't have a job either. He's unemployed. He used to live near the woods outside Caledon and witnessed the owner's activities in the woods. His name is Anthony Polo. When he lived in the small bungalow outside the woods, he would often venture in to smoke a joint or two before returning to his work as a woods craftsman. Polo described that sometimes he would hear voices of children coming from deeper within the woods, as well as a glowing light off in the distance. Polo told me these events started in late 1997. No, this is around the time Caledon Local 21 began airing. Apparently, he became annoyed by this happening every once in a while, and actually went to investigate. Polo then described what the whole scene looked like when he got there. There was a group of kids, he said about 13 to 17, and ages 5 to 12, gathered around a large fire pit with a burning fire. With them was a single adult. Polo talked to the man, noting his unusual, unkempt appearance of crack addicts, as well as his consistent twitching, and asked what exactly he was doing out in the forest with the children. The man said they were on a camping trip, something they did frequently. Polo, not suspecting anything, Caledon has one of the lowest crime rates in Canada, simply left it at that, and told them to be quieter. Polo paused for a second before telling me they never became quieter. In fact, sometimes he had heard loud chanting from the children in an unknown language. He didn't bother meeting with the man again, as he was moving away. I told Polo that the man probably owned Caledon Local 21, but he doubted it, as he heard the man was moving to Pickering by several other residents in the area. Here's what I know now. The man would take kids into the woods regularly for camping. The fire pit Polo described may have been the hole the bodies of the children were found in. The children Polo saw were probably the ones found dead. The man moved to a city called Pickering, a smaller city east of Toronto. I will discuss this with my dad's friend, the ex-cop, and see if this matches anything the police knew about the man. I also want to see if he has any other knowledge of what was aired on Caledon Local 21. Good news, guys. I talked to my dad's friend, and he's disclosed a lot of info for me. First, I asked if the police had any information on the man who ran Caledon Local 21. He said they only had the same leads for years, and never found a suspect. However, the Peel Regional Police do have tapes that were found in the house. He took me over so I could watch a few. I guess I haven't said much about him. My dad's friend's name is Mitchell Wilson. He's a pretty nice guy. He seems to understand my thirst for knowledge on what happened during the late 90s. He feels it was wrong that my dad went so long without telling me. He took me to the Davis Police Station. If you don't know, it's the largest police station in Caledon, and the largest within the Peel region. I was able to watch all the footage that Davis Road Station has. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to take any of the tapes home for obvious reasons. Paint with the Soul, Episode 10, Garbage Thrown Away. Paint with the Soul was one of the shows that I Am Real Life and Siggy92 discussed on Neoseeker. I told the police about this, and they informed me that 12 episodes of the show were made and broadcasted between December 5th, 1997 and January 8th, 1998. Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 25. When the police administrator brought this tape in, I actually said, "Oh, shit," and chuckled a bit out loud. Of course, I got stares from the staff, but Wilson explained my little experience to them. Like previous episodes, this one included a guy wearing a bear mascot costume. The episode began with Mr. Bear waddling over to his cellar door with a bottle of orange juice in his hands. In his paws, yeah. On the ground were 16 shot glasses. Damn. Mr. Bear's getting turned. On the ground were 16 shot glasses, as well as a small bottle that contained an unknown liquid. Mr. Bear poured an equal amount of orange juice into each of the glasses before opening the smaller bottle and depositing one drop into the glass. Mr. Bear went off camera. There were some minor sounds such as shuffling, and then Mr. Bear emerged from behind the camera's location. Following him were 16 children. Some looked as young as 4, while others looked like they were practically teenagers. As the children entered, the administrator commented that this was the only episode that showed all 16 victims. The kids all looked rather content, except for one who had visible bruises on his face, and unlike the others, he had a more fearful expression. He also looked about 11 to 12, which caused me to recognize him. He was the kid who asked about his sister, and subsequently met an unknown fate at the end of episode 23. When I told the administrator this, he confirmed that it was the same kid. He was also featured in episode 24, an episode that only aired once at 3 o'clock in July 1999. The police still have not found the tape. Mr. Bear then broke into song, singing about citrus fruits and how vitamin C is good for you. I could barely hear the lyrics, they were muffled by the bear mask. The kids all drank the juice, the one from episode 23 doing it rather reluctantly, and the episode ended. After viewing the tapes in possession of the Davis Road Police Station, I'm satisfied, but only temporarily. I still want to know the full story. The police just keep giving me the same crap about the creator of Caledon Local 21 being a fetishist pedophile, as well as an apparent cultist. I'll sign off for now. Get into uni first, get info later. Hopefully I'll get back to this blog as soon as possible. Last month, I finally got my G2 license. In Canada, this allows you to drive a car by yourself, with some passengers after 6 months. Of course, I took advantage of this to drive down to Caledon for a little Sunday drive. Since I haven't updated this blog in a while, I figured I might as well visit the house where the infamous channel of my childhood was located. The place was no longer used as a daycare, and just kinda sat abandoned. However, it did have a for sale sign, showing that someone still owned it and wanted to get rid of it. The abandoned house drew fuzzy memories from my mind. Mainly of that day Dad took me to visit Mr. Bear. A feeling of dread came upon me. What happened to the children while they were living in that house? I walked up a few steps to the front door and peered through the window inside. I could see a nearly empty hallway with a few boxes at the end. At the end of the hallway to the right was an open doorway, presumably leading to the kitchen. To the left were 2 doors, apparently leading to the rooms visible through the windows outside. I wondered where the cellar entrance was, whether it had been sealed up. I walked around to the back of the house and found my answer. 2 wooden doors, lying at an almost flat angle, padlocked shut. This had to lead to the cellar. Not wanting to hang around, you can't imagine what was going through my mind at that time. I left. Behind the house, the empty field continued until it reached a dense forest that lined the horizon. I wondered if that was the forest where the bodies of the children were found. I thought to myself, fuck it, and proceeded to walk across the field behind the house into the forest. The forest was oddly quiet, save for the few periodic sounds of a woodpecker drilling into the distant tree. I cautiously made my way deeper into the woods, not really caring about the fact that I had no idea where I was going. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt like there was something I had to find. I came to a thinner part of the woods and a few small houses in the distance. Polo's house crossed my mind, and I wondered if one of these homes had belonged to him. I neared a small clearing in which I could see 3 adequately sized logs gathered around a black charred area, showing a small fire had been lit there recently. Oh my god, that's in all caps. It's 10 o'clock, I'm not gonna scream. Hey, get the fuck out of our fort! Those words nearly gave me a heart attack. I turned to my left and saw 2 dark-clothed people running towards me. My initial thought was to run, however, as they came closer, I saw they were really just kids in their early teens, possibly 13 or 14, maybe 12? They approached me. They realized my size. I'm 6'1". They could have been no bigger than 5'8". One of them maybe 5'7". We said, get the fuck out. The larger one, who was wearing a Slipknot shirt, said half-heartedly. I stood my ground and shrugged. The shorter one, who was wearing a Metallica shirt, swung out a butterfly knife and held it in my direction. No, you wouldn't want to, I said in a deep, serious tone, trying to sound as badass as possible. I pulled out my cell phone. The 2 kids withdrew, the one in the Metallica shirt putting away the knife. Look, dude, we just don't like people in our fort, okay? So can you just fucking go? The one in the Slipknot shirt said, obviously intimidated. I had no business in the forest anyway, so I uttered out a simple, fine, and turned before I realized I had a great opportunity. Did either of you hear about a guy... Whoa, oh my god. Did either of you hear about a guy who murdered a bunch of kids in these woods about 13 years ago? I asked the kids. The 2 looked at each other in confusion before the one wearing the Metallica shirt answered. Yeah, everyone knows that guy, he said to me, as if I were stupid. The kid in the Slipknot shirt continued. Yeah, he still lives around here, in a storm drain. My big brother's friend said he saw him in a bear costume once, wandering around the forest at night. My instincts told me that this was probably a lie, and the owner of Caledon Local 21 is probably long gone, only existing in folklore in this small, isolated community. However, as a human, the thought of the mysterious unknown sparks an interest within. And where's this storm drain? I asked, just out of curiosity. I don't actually believe the kid's story. Listen, guys, I don't actually believe this kid. The kid in the Metallica shirt stared at me for a few moments, his eyes seemingly full of annoyance yet curiosity for me. You're not from around here, are you? Why'd you even fucking come here? Now, I do admit, I was slightly startled by the nature of this question. However, I figured I might as well explain why I was there, just in case people mistook my intentions. I told the two kids about my experience with the man and Caledon Local 21, and that I had come to seek out some sort of closure, although I wasn't even exactly sure. The kids seemed familiar with the channel, as they smiled and looked at each other when I mentioned it. They also became more understanding and gave me a detailed description of how to get to the storm drain. Shortly after, I decided to turn around the way I came and head back to the house, leaving the kids in their fort. You're probably wondering why I left out such detail about what the kids told me. It's because I'm choosing to conclude what I've gathered now. Here's what the kids told me. The storm drain lies ahead of the kids' fort in the same direction I was heading. The drain ends in a small river, where the access water is drained out, near a small playground. The kids told me people rarely use it. The man supposedly lives in a large pipe that the rainwater drains out of. People have seen him, although always wearing a bear mask or the mask of a full-body bear costume. Note, I don't believe this is true, and is in fact simply a myth created by the residents of Caledon. The story doesn't seem plausible in any way. Why does no one call the police? Didn't the guy look suspicious? And other questions like these leave the story invalid. I may visit the storm drain, not because I believe the story, but because I want an excuse to visit Caledon again. So this blog doesn't die. With no more tapes to watch, I don't know what to talk about anymore. Thanks for continuing to support me and my blog. I know many people are looking forward to more information about what happened in Caledon during the year 1999, and I'll do my best to continue the research into the topic. Elliot out. Wow. Nearly 5 months since I last updated. I'm guessing everyone pretty much thinks I was dead, right? Thankfully not. But in all seriousness, I've been really busy these past few months, and a blog about something that could have killed me as a kid is a little low on my current priorities list. As of now, I'm living in Waterloo, Ontario. Oh no. Attending the University of Waterloo. Oh fuck. For computer engineering. Oh boy, this guy's fucked. Yeah, I'm a keener. What the fuck is a keener? As you can imagine, engineering is no walk in the park, so obviously I forgot about this blog. But as you can see now, I'm back. I remember to visit the storm drain the kids from Caledon told me about. There was a clearing between the wooded areas, nearby a marsh. I found absolutely nothing, save for a turtle that retreated into its built-in home when it saw me. I snapped a couple pics of the pipe, which I have posted as well. Also, let me tell you, it was not a storm drain like they said it was. What I saw was a simple pipe, possibly to channel the access water from the marsh. When I returned from Caledon, however, I simply kept putting off uploading everything until I forgot about my blog. It just didn't seem important anymore. Please forgive me. It wasn't until only recently that I'm now interested in this case again. On September 10th, I received an email from this email address, returntheb@hotmail.com. Funny, right? Well, it gets better. I'm gonna copy and paste the exact email this guy sent me.
Dear Elliot, my dear, dear boy, you see this story may or may not be true, but it could happen. There are many slots for airtime. If you have the money, you can have a public access TV channel. Some public access channels share airtime, like EWTN, religious channel based out of Michigan, but during off-air hours, have independent shows or just blue screen. Cable networks have empty channels available for rent space. So the scenario of a pedo renting a channel on basic TV is not far-fetched at all. However, public access TV is wildly reviewed and can be terminated at any time. These are the rules for the United States, not Canada, where this story took place. So if this happened in the US, the pedo would be tracked and arrested immediately. Yes, this story could happen, but is unlikely. 100 fuzzy hugs, Mr. Bear.
Now, obviously this letter's fake, and it sounds almost corrupted, but still, I would like to thank whoever sent it, though they obviously could use some English lessons. Just reading this letter creeped me out, but because of it, I'm now full of a new interest to continue this blog. I guess it's just funny, always trying to pursue the mysteries I've always questioned. Now my roommate knows about all of this. He thought the letter was real, and actually seemed more scared than I for a second. But then I just kind of shrugged it off, so he did too. I mean, what are the chances of this being real? How would Mr. Bear know all this about public access TV? and about when I went to Caledon on those occasions. More or less know my email and still be interested in the Cellar. I'm gonna send a reply to return the bee. Wow, just looking at the email address, you can tell someone wanted to freak me out. It didn't really work though, although whoever you are, thank you for sparking my interest back into the matter. Maybe I can find out more about what happened to Mr. Bear. Hopefully, because although I don't buy the email, part of me feels anxious. Thank you to those who are still following me and have become avid fans. You are also why I'm choosing to continue this. Thanks, guys. Update, November 7th, 2010. Wow, I can't believe this vlog. Wow, I can't believe this blog hasn't been deleted yet. I haven't checked it for so long. I have many reasons I'd rather not discuss just yet. It's been a rather traumatic month for me. Some of you were right, I shouldn't have gone back to trying to relive the mysteries of my childhood, but I couldn't resist. It's been a month since my last post, and a lot has happened. Let's recap where I'm at right now with the whole Mr. Bear thing. Return the Bee at Hotmail is no longer in use. I tried replying to the email but got no reply. I tried again a while back, still no response. I've actually moved up to Ottawa, the capital of Canada for those who don't know, for university, so I haven't been back to Caledon or back home in the Peel region for a while. I had my reasons for leaving. You could guess why. I've had to make a new email account because people keep prank emailing me. Thanks a lot, guys. Not. Why have I ventured back to this blog? Mitchell Wilson, remember my dad's ex-cop friend? He gave me a phone to call on October 23rd about a tape that was found in a branch of the Brampton Public Library. Brampton is my hometown, in case you haven't picked up on that. He claims he isn't allowed to discuss the contents of the tape with me, as it's still in evidence, but he asked me to come check it out when I return home. The tape got the gears grinding again, because we all know that the last tape I saw, I can only imagine what can be on it. I'm guessing it has to be something to do with Caledon Local 21. I'm guessing I just want to say I'm continuing this blog, and thank you for everyone who still follows it. I don't know when my next entry will be, but when I see the tape, I'll write what I find. I don't know what to expect, but the idea of seeing another tape has gotten me interested in this whole mystery again. Elliot. The end of 2010 into the new year was dreadfully long for me. University has been giving me the usual sleepless nights, especially since I transferred to Ottawa, which is the place to party. Sarcasm. I got back home on the 18th of December, and I've been visiting friends and family. Now that festive holiday cheer that I usually have at this time of the month is absent. To answer the hundreds of emails and comments I got, yes, I did see the tape that my dad's friend, Mitchell Wilson, promised to show me. These tapes, however, act as a curse. I want to know more, yet I want to forget everything. I couldn't help it. I needed to see those tapes, not for myself, but for all of you guys who are just as intrigued as I am by that ominous man in the bear suit from my past. However, after viewing the tapes, I feel a pit of dread deep inside me once again. That feeling where I know all those kids in those videos are dead, that I could have been one of those kids, and that humanity is a dark, dark place. If you haven't skipped this paragraph for the juicier details below, thank you for listening to my rambling. On January 1st, I called Mitchell Wilson and asked if there was a time where I could come by and view the tapes. Things were pretty slow at the station because of a snowstorm, so he said I could come down any time that day. So I braved the slushy roads and terrible Brampton drivers and made my way to the Peel Regional Police Station, located at Bramelia City Center. I met Wilson at the front desk, where he then led me up to the second-story floor in a small office. He instructed me to have a seat and wait for a while he got the tapes. Before leaving the office, he turned to me and said, "I know you're curious, but are you sure you want to do this?" Of course I did, or at least I thought so. Besides, Wilson's friend had pulled a lot of strings to get me there, and I didn't want to waste the opportunity. This particular station had 2 tapes in hand, and I was only able to watch a few minutes of footage. However, because the second tape was apparently too damaged to be played on a VCR. Mr. Bear's Cellar, episode 30. Mr. Bear never ceases to disturb me, especially after what almost happened when I was younger. This episode took place outside in a forest at dusk, making it slightly hard to see, especially considering the quality of the film, a trademark of anything from Caledon Local 21. The episode started with the camera being held in the paws of Mr. Bear himself. That bear mask, it looked more sinister in the shadows of the trees. The unmistakable muffled voice spoke up.
Hello, children. Today I will be doing a wonderful thing for my friends. I will be delivering them to a faraway land where they will surely be happy.
Mr. Bear turned the camera around to show an ATV attached to a trailer. But what stood out the most was that the trailer contained 7 motionless children lying side by side.
This here is the first load, but more will be on their way soon.
Mr. Bear turned the camera around and pointed at a large burlap tarp spread on the ground. He picked up the tarp, revealing a hole that must have been at least 12 feet deep, maybe about 15 feet wide. Damn, that is a big fucking hole. The rest of the episode consisted of Mr. Bear taking each of the kids and dropping them into the hole. I asked Wilson if they were dead, which he shook his head and replied, "Not yet." Soon, all the kids were in the pit. Some were in awkward positions due to being tossed in, but they remained unconscious.
The vitamin C will surely help these children on their great journey,
Mr. Bear mentioned as he panned the camera towards multiple bottles of gasoline beside a bush. The camera zoomed into the bottles as Mr. Bear hummed before the episode ended. Wilson revealed to me that these were 7 of the 16 victims found burnt to a crisp. The gasoline is what the man playing Mr. Bear used to light them on fire. A pit full of burning children. Who the fuck would do that? That feeling of dread found me once again, and I realized that I could have been one of those kids. Wilson then explained to me that he had previously lied. The other tape confiscated by Ramelia Police Branch did indeed work, and contained filming of the actual burning. However, he felt that I wouldn't be able to handle the disturbing and graphic nature of the episode. And you know what? Maybe I can't. I don't even want to see it. I'm satisfied for now. But I just need some time to get myself together. This thing, the man who ran Cellar on Local 21, is still out there. More to come soon. Elliot. Before I continue to the next update, on Halloween, a post would be made to the blog called INRI, which is the phrase that was placed on the sign above Jesus as he was crucified. It roughly translates to Jesus of Nazarene, King of the Jews.
Once upon a time, there lived a boy named Elliot. Elliot was a clever boy who loved playing with his friends. One day, he watched a lovely television show about a bear and his children friends. The children loved helping each other, as good children should. But they also loved the bear. The bear loved the children, since the children were so good at helping him and the fallen angel. The children and the bear wanted to play together forever with the help of their angel friend. But the fallen angel needed even more help, so the children had to give the ultimate sacrifice. Because that's what friends do, Elliot. They help each other. Help us, Elliot. Bird with us, Elliot. I want you, Elliot. He wants you, Elliot. Come back to my cellar. Pretty please, with sugar and icing on top. Mr. B.
Update, April 5th, 2011. I want to update this more. I truly did. However, certain circumstances turned me off with the whole Cellar on Local 21 thing. I've since then had hundreds of emails about my blog, and I was even in contact with a magazine about my story. But now is the time I come clean to everyone. Where I've been for an entire year? The story of Pandora's box is true. I opened it. I opened it, and when I watched the second tape in the possession of the Ramelia Police Branch, the other subject I'd like to address is the number of jokes, fake emails I've been getting from people claiming to be Mr. Bear. Let's start with the second tape then, because it's what's kind of traumatized me into stopping my search temporarily. After a few weeks of playing silent, I decided to ask Mitchell Wilson if I could view the second tape he talked about. I don't know why, I just felt like viewing that tape would give me closure. Wilson was reluctant, of course, but I was persistent. He gave me an offer. If I was still interested by the time I turned 20, he would show me the tape. Not being able to do much else, I played the waiting game. By the time my 20th birthday rolled around, I was definitely still interested in viewing the tape. I gave Wilson the call, during which he admitted that he hoped I'd forget about this and stop asking him. "You really don't need to see it, kid," he kept telling me, but I did need to see it. I had to at this point. Sure enough, he invited me to the Brampton branch one Monday afternoon. Having watched every Saw film and video of an animal slaughterhouse in my ethics class, I was sure I'd be able to handle whatever the tape could throw at me. Mr. Bear's Cellar, episode 31. When Wilson went to collect the tape from the evidence, the officer in charge of the evidence room shook his head at me, his face saying, "What are you doing?" Wilson explained that the tape included the last known episode of Mr. Bear's Cellar. I rightfully assumed that I would be seeing the fate of the children. and began to feel a sense of dread. The episode opened inside a forest, the usual one from the previous episodes. This fact took me a while to realize because it was night. The trees and leaves just looked like shapes dancing around the darkness. A faint glow of light was pressed on the right of the screen. There wasn't any apparent audio. It appeared to be a windy night. The trees weren't making any noise. Slowly the camera began to pan towards the glow, revealing smoke rising from a hole, with the tips of flames peeking over the top. Wilson paused. "Kid, are you sure you want to see this?" he asked me. I insisted on it, even though a voice in my head was telling me not to. The video continued. The cameraman moved towards the hole, showing a pit of fire. This was the hole that I had seen in the previous episode, only this time it was filled with shapes. I could see shapes moving around, fluttering, flailing, some motionless. I knew perfectly well what they were. The camera began to adjust to the light. Burning red and black flesh, a blur of surreal movement and colors. I wish I could forget. I wish I can forget what I saw. But you can't forget a scene like this. This wasn't a horror movie, it was reality. Children being killed in a horrifying way, a fate that I could have potentially met. The video suddenly cut to a draw, the camera now positioned farther away from the hole. The fire was out. However, there was still smoke rising up. A figure was up ahead. I recognized it right away. It was Mr. Bear. It laid on the ground empty. It looked just as unnerving. The suit was laid out in the shape of a cross. The cameraman did a lap around the suit, treating it like a treasured artifact. Placed at the head of the suit was a sign in bold letters. INRI was printed. The cameraman moved to the back of the suit, zooming in on the bear's face, and the episode ended. I was speechless. It was like a dream. You can find a lot of terrible things on the internet, but I'd never seen anything like this. Wilson asked if I was okay, and I replied with a shaky yes. I assured him as we left I was fine, and that the video gave me closure of the whole incident. He didn't seem too confident in me, but he left it at that. He was right, though. I had nightmares for weeks. I gave up. I didn't care about the whole thing anymore. A sick man burnt kids alive, attracting them with a fake TV channel, and I could have been one of his victims, yet I'm still here. I suppose I should be grateful, but I feel guilty. Am I still here by pure luck? 10 months later, I'm back, but now I need to address something else. My email has been flooded with messages. Some people ask for more details, some ask if I can upload the tapes, and some people email me claiming to be Mr. Bear. First, I cannot give the tapes uploaded as they are A, in police possession, and B, I have no idea how to transfer VHS into a computer. As for people pretending to be Mr. Bear, you're not fooling me. When you have dozens of people pretending to be the same person, it doesn't work. I've seen a fake Callan on Local 21 YouTube channel, which is cute and all, but still not real. Even more annoying is the fact that someone hacked my account just to put something up. I'll leave it in, the entry above this one, just to show you guys. I have contacted the webmaster about the entry, and he told me that it was posted on Halloween. Oh, spooky. He attached the email, paintwiththeb@aol.com, which I assume is another joke email. I'm over episode 31 now. The images of what I saw will stick with me for a while. But I want to do one last hurrah. I'll get into contact with Mitchell Wilson again. Hopefully set up a time to get some of the tapes in the possession of the other Peel branches. I'll try to update you guys as soon as I can. I'm sure this won't take long again. Thank you for everyone who still reads this. Elliot. Zooey Mama. What a story here. So let's wrap this up. 1999 is great for a few reasons. Number one, its premise. Trust me, I love a good creature feature, but there's something to be said about stories that have a realistic setting. Titles like Baraska come to mind. Should probably do a video on that one day. The idea of these events happening in the real world gives this story an extra punch that I think most creepypastas lack. Not saying that all stories have to be realistic, but when they are, it feels more grounded and weightier. Number 2, length. This isn't a 2-hour read. You're not going to be here forever. It tells the story that it wants to tell and leaves it at that, and I think that's great. Number 3, the ending. I know leaving off on a cliffhanger isn't for everyone, but I believe that it allows the reader to come up with their own interpretations. For example, I think that Elliot simply dropped the blog after episode 31, moved on with his degree, and that was it. However, many people think that he went back to Caledon, was killed. There's really no right or wrong. It makes the story stick with you for longer than it otherwise would have because you're thinking, well, what happened? All right, now my problems. I really only have one gripe. It's that one part in the story where Elliot is talking to the kids in the woods. It's not needed. It just comes off as weird. We could have gotten this info from somebody like Anthony Polo. We didn't need 2 nerds in the woods text walling about Mr. Bear. Overall, 1999's pretty awesome. I would have called down a 500 kilogram bomb and blown up Mr. Bear's cellar. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Peace.
Here's Anthony's cat. Oh my god!